joining us now on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline to discuss numbers, crunching analytics, if that's even a thing. ESPN Sports Analytics team and BYU graduate specialist for the worldwide leader, Paul Sabin. Paul, nice to have you back on the show, man.
Thanks for having me back.
You got it. In a nutshell, for those that are new to the program or may have not heard the description, or frankly for Jeremy and I, because we probably need a refresher course on all this too, what is the ESPN Football Power Index and why should we really care about it?
Yeah, the FPI, as we sometimes call it, it's a predictive measure. So the point is to rank teams based on how they'll do going forward. So if you look at the number, BYU has an FPI 4.9. That just means on a neutral field, we expect them to be 4.9 points better than an average team. So you can compare teams' FPI, and that's how you would expect them to perform against other teams on a neutral field.
Gotcha. Okay, so I see BYU favored in 10 of these games. They're 50.1% plus. But the win total is projected at 8.8. What's the difference there?
Yeah, 8.8 is the average number of wins. We do 10,000 simulations of the season, and on average, BYU wins 8.8 games. Favored, that's kind of a loose term. Okay, so you're more than 50% likely to win. But if we had 3 games and you were favored by 66% or 2/3, on average, you would win 2 of those games.
Yeah.
But you're favored in all 3.
Gotcha. And that's the exact number for the BYU-Utah game, which brings me to this question. A few weeks ago, that number was in the 50s. Now it's at 66%. What happened between now and then to change that number?
Yeah, so we occasionally in the offseason will update our numbers, and the preseason numbers are largely based on a lot of Phil Steele's, returning starters, returning quarterback, returning coach. And so I think some news came out either about BYU and Utah about returning starters, so I think we have more than he originally thought, and so that affects how good he thinks we are. And so, yeah, we're favored. It's not that, we're on a 6-game losing streak, but we've been favored against Utah before, so let's not, get too excited until the game is played.
Just to clarify, BYU now has the advantage because there are more starters on the Cougars side compared to Utah. Is that what you're telling us?
Well, it's kind of complicated, but that's one of the factors is how many returning starters, your returning quarterback, how well you did last year and the previous 4 years, but mostly how well you did last year. And if you look at last year, BYU and Utah were almost identical at the end of the season in FPI. And so I think we have more returning players than they do, and so that impacts us, and we're at home. So obviously that is another factor that we should be, since we're pretty equal, we should be favored at home.
Paul Sabin, ESPN Analytics specialist and contributor and a BYU fan. Don't forget it. When you look at the 8.8 wins, Paul, that compared to the rest of college football is 23rd nationally in terms of an overall number. But BYU is 42nd right now in the FPI rankings. What will it take for BYU to finish as a top 25 team?
Yeah, so, the polls, they really care about wins and losses, right? And so we have the strength of record metric, and once we start playing games, you'll see that on the website where we are, and that'll be very close to what the pollsters where they'll rank us. But 8-8 is the projected. So if BYU plays better than they're expected to against these teams, they'll move up. And so 8.8, my guess is if they win 10 out of these 13 games, they'll be ranked at the end of the season. But that means, they have to win hopefully 3 of the big 5 games that they have on their schedule.
We call them the Furious Five because we really love
Furious
Kung
Five.
Fu Panda.
Yeah, we love alliteration.
We love alliteration. The 3 games BYU is not favored in or whatever, 50.1% plus, are LSU, Wisconsin, Mississippi State. How do you come up with the win probability number in a nutshell?
Yeah, so it is basically it's your FPI rating versus the other team, and then there's adjustments based on how many days rest you have and the other team, home away, neutral, how far you have to travel. So LSU, it's a neutral site game. They're number 10 in FPI, but it's only semi-neutral. It's just a couple hours drive from Baton Rouge, right? So it's a pseudo road game, and that's being captured in the low percentage chance to win there. And you'll see Mississippi State is only 33rd, but we have to play them on the road. So we have about the same chance of beating them on the road as we do of playing a better team, or at least we expect to be a better team in Wisconsin at home.
So if we, are to look at numbers from a strictly neutral field position, is there somewhere we can look at those with your analytics? Like if BYU were to play LSU not an hour away from Baton Rouge, or if BYU were to play Utah at a neutral site or Mississippi State at a neutral site, like are there numbers out there that BYU fans can look at?
Yeah, so it's actually pretty simple. So the FPI number, BYU right now, is a 4.9, and LSU is a 17.5. So on a neutral field, 17.5 minus 4.9.
Whoa. Too much math. Wait, hold on.
12.6.
Yeah, it's 12.6. So that is the expected results on average on a neutral field against LSU.
What do you mean?
So
12.6. What does that mean? 12.6 what?
That's on average. If
points,
we only have one chance to play the game, but if we got to play the game a bunch of times, on average, we expect to lose by 12 points. But if we played Utah, for example, they're a 1.5 and we're a 4.9. Right now, we're expecting BYU to be about 3.5 points better than Utah on a neutral field.
Interesting, because the line in Vegas is 3. How about that?
Yeah. How about that? Good stuff, Paul. We always appreciate the time, man. I don't know how in the world you do all of this.
And we're just going to call you if we have a math question, like unrelated to FPI. We'll just be like, hey, what's this minus this? I don't have my TI 86. Is that okay?
Yeah, my relatives do that all the time, so it won't be anything new.
That's awesome.
Paul Sabin, analytics specialist and contributor to ESPN in the Football Power Index. FPI says BYU's strength of schedule is 72nd. We'll wrap up the conversation here, Paul, with that SOS. What goes into compiling a strength of schedule?
Yeah, so we pick a baseline team, and what we do is pick like an average top 25 team, and we say if they played our schedule, how hard would it be for them? And we do that for everybody in the nation. How hard would just this generic team's schedule be if they played ours or Utah's or LSU's? So if an average top 25 team played our schedule, it would be about 72nd hardest in the country versus, if they played, LSU's schedule, obviously in the SEC is going to be a lot harder than ours.
I always feel educated, and it's nice to be educated on a Friday. Lots to think about numbers-wise over the weekend, Paul. Thanks for the time, man.